We kind of talked to Ms. Larson. And she,
After we can take a picture.
Great.
All right, it is 6:30. We're going to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and join us. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With that, I will call the regular meeting of the Osceola School District Board of Education for Wednesday, December 20th, 2023 to order. I will start with the roll call. Jan here, Kaisa here, Craig here, Corey, myself is here. All right, item 1C is persons who requested an audience with the board. I have the list and it is empty, so we will move on to the consent agenda.
Speaking up, I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay. Motion by Kaisa, second by Craig. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed would be nay. That is approved. Item 3, improving our academic achievement with accountability through data-driven practices. Review the 23-24 budget estimates and projections.
In December, January-ish, I typically like to just come forward and give a little bit of an update of looking at where we are for 23-24 in regards to what affected our budget for this year. Talk a little bit about enrollment and the projections, what it's looking like statewide, and then what we can look for in a 24-25 forecasted budget. So just a couple things about 23-24. This is recap. Obviously, we've been here about this annual meeting, but when we're looking at state aid, again, no increase to that equalization general aid. On the revenue limit, we received that 1,000, or we were allotted the additional $1,000 per pupil to the low revenue ceiling, and then it'll be an additional $325 per pupil each year after. So we'll see that $325 for 24-25 will go up to $11,325. Categorical aids, special education was increased to 33.3%. In regards to ESSER money, we have used all of our ESSER money available, so we do not have that ESSER money budgeted for 23-24. The $3 million non-recurring operational referendum we have on this year's levy has expired and will not be on the levy for 24-25. So that's a good talking point. We'll revisit that a little bit when we get into talking about mill rate in regards to the projects that are going to be discussed later. Used to this sticker, April. Is it opposite of? There we go. Like I said, talking a little bit about enrollment. Enrollment drives revenue for our school district, obviously most school districts in the state of Wisconsin. We rely on a 3-year rolling average on the revenue limit to determine what we'll receive in total revenue limit authority. As you can see, in the last 5 years or so, we've had the decrease. We did tick up a little bit in 21, 22, and 22, 23, and now we're starting to see that decline again. And if you look at the projections for the next 5 years, you will see that steady decline. I believe the population study said that we could be anywhere between 9 and 27% in the next 5 years. Why do we talk about enrollment? Again, the state controls K-12 spending through the revenue limit. It's the largest funding source, state aid and tax levy. It creates an inverse relationship between these two funding sources. So if one goes up, one goes down. So if you're receiving more levy, you're likely receiving less state aid. More state aid, you're going to have less revenue limit authority. And then again, it's driven by resident enrollment, and it's calculated over a 3-year rolling average. This is just a really good interactive chart that we've been given to show that it's not unique to Osceola. This is a a concern statewide, so you can see from 2005-06 going forward what it looks like and how that loss at 20% or more, the map starts to get darker. There are a few areas, I'll just point out the one that's closest to us, that would be the Grantsburg area, and that is entirely due to their online school that they have. But if you watch it again, you can see how it gets darker and darker.
The years are at the top. It took me twice to
Yeah.
watch this to figure out what I was actually seeing, so the years are at the top.
I'm assuming that other yellow one that's near us is Nixon.
To the south?
Yeah.
Yes, I believe it is.
It's been in Hudson.
So what's ahead of us? As we look at the 24-25 budget, we are projecting a $2.8 million deficit. What is contributing to this deficit? We have included a 3.5% salary increase. This is not set, I just want to be clear about that. This is just a number that we use in order to create a budget. A 4% increase in utilities, that is an average that we apply, and then 6.29% increase in health insurance. Again, that is not set, that is just a number that we are using right now to build a base. Other contributing factors when we look at salary increases, we talk about inflation, right? So inflation as of July 1st, 2023 was 8%. The projected inflation for June 1st, 2024 is 4.37. It's on a 6-month lag, so in January we should have that July amount. Again, I do believe it's going to go down, so that is a positive in regards to it balancing out a little bit, not having such a high spike. Again, we're not looking at any increase in state aid, equalization aid, general aid. We have that $325 per pupil. We're estimating a declining enrollment of 27 students for 24-25. And just to reiterate, that $3 million non-recurring referendum is coming off, which is the largest factor for us in the deficit. Question? We'd likely bring a preliminary budget in April. That'll be early, but it allows us to have some discussions before we really start to set it in July.
Thanks, Shannon. All right, that brings us to item 4, aligning and developing our facilities to best meet educational safety and security goals. Consideration and possible adoption of one of the 2 initial resolutions, option 1 and option 3.
Okay, well, we're here. Do you wanna just, are you leading this, Andrew, or am I? Where's Matt? I don't, Matt's on phone?
Matt and Megan are likely connected online.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we are here. Good evening. I apologize for not being in person. I've had some family circumstances, and I really appreciate Becky understanding and encouraging me to do this remote, so thank you for understanding. Obviously, we're continuing the conversation regarding building off our last board meeting, specifically focused on whether the board would like to proceed, if at all, with option 1 or option 3. We did develop option 3 further, based on feedback from the board that we were going to consider daycare solutions in the future. So what is on the screen right now, and thank you, April, for sharing, is a plan that addresses our 4K, 5K, and early childhood needs in the addition, as we've previously discussed, but it changes the general configuration of the plan, acknowledging that the daycare component would not be added at this. What we've done here to help maximize and share with you in the community the goal for maximizing available sites. You can see the dashed lines on this plan with the word previous wrong, so Clint will be hearing from me about that. Right?
I had noticed it till you said it.
We wanted to share kind of what the former footprint was, so hopefully you're seeing that the goal here is to maximize the available site area while still creating a plan that is flexible for the future. So if we jump to the next slide, we can always come back to the floor plan or site plan. I'd be happy to share more about that. Before we even go further, it's important to note that we kept the square footage target the same. So from a budget perspective, The addition and the renovations shown on this plan don't change the budget, so the budget you have seen previously remains intact. What this does is shows a much more compact footprint. It still shows the vast majority of spaces in the building, either getting direct natural light or indirect natural light. And some may ask, what happens if we want to expand in the future? So we intentionally placed the two corridors, I'll say heading up on the plan, in between the 5K classrooms. You can see the one on the left, the corridor on the left, and the corridor on the right with the stair shown in it. Those corridors would be the location whereby we could add if we needed to in the future. So this plan still provides a great deal of flexibility for daycare or whatever other function you may, or future boards may want to bring to this site in a variety of ways. I'll use daycare just because it's what we've been talking about. If you decide as a board and a community to bring daycare here in the future, you've got two options. One would be we take the classrooms that are labeled 3rd and 4th that are down in front of the school right now, the existing building, as labeled with 3s and 4s. Some of those could be repurposed and considered for daycare, which would allow that center connection to be the main daycare entry in and out throughout the school day. Or we could look at the 4K classrooms as shown on the right side of this plan, plus early childhood as daycare classrooms, and then simply recreate whatever we need heading further out back on the site. So the thought here is that we condense the floor plan as much as possible today, so we maximize available site, but still protect the ability for future boards to make decisions regarding expanding this building if necessary, or if daycare wants to come here. The other piece I'll point out is that as we reviewed this plan further, we realized that we had probably a little more cafeteria square footage than was needed, but didn't have enough offices and support spaces for student services, psych and guidance and social and all the important pieces that you offer with students. So you can see on the left side of the plan, the bottom half of the former library used to be all cafeteria expansion. Could become some form of a student service center that has offices and meeting space for students within that area. The exact quantity, configuration, as with all of this, it will be figured out post-referendum. But because that square footage was proposed for renovation in the original budget, that minor change to what it could look like doesn't change the budget either. If we jump to the second floor, you'll see that we still kept the library and 2 flex classrooms available. This, from just a general constructability perspective, is going to be a more efficient, more affordable plan because our former walls were not always lining up exactly with walls below. Our former plan had the taller 2-section story of the school directly connected to the existing building. And when you do that, you put snow drift load. So if you can think about a higher wall next to a lower wall, the snow drifts in the winter, if we ever get snow, up against that higher wall, and it creates extra load on the existing building. So this plan allows us to really not have that impact as we would have had in the prior plan. So I'll pause there and see if the board has any questions. We think this achieves all the goals we previously discussed. It's been vetted by the leadership team and principals, and we've made some tweaks related to their feedback, but it doesn't change the budget which we shared with you at previous. I'll pause there, Brooke, if any board members or others have any thoughts, additional comments, or questions.
So Matt, I have a couple of questions, regarding this added on, essentially the second school, kind of is the way to think about it, right? Does this have boilers built into it, or would it be tapping into the existing boilers which are way down at the other end of the building?
This would have new mechanical, so you can see right here on this plan, there's a room labeled storage/mechanical. We also have square footage built into the overall budget that isn't shown today. We haven't shown every janitor's closet, every data room, every vertical space for ductwork. So we have square footage planned for those things, just don't have the exact locations figured out. But your existing boilers would not have the capacity, do not have the capacity to support this size of an addition. So this does assume additional boiler capacity, additional cooling capacity, and additional electrical capacity to support this new square footage.
Because as I was looking through our list, that just was Bob's list for forever of the items that we need to address, the couple of things that were at the top of the list was some things at the intermediate school, being the roof and the boilers, and so just wondering how that would play into adding on to this building, those aspects.
Yeah, so the boiler capacity for the addition will be handled. It likely will be more efficient to potentially build a new boiler plant with the addition and backfeed the existing. So we'll explore that further as we move along. And just as a reminder, this has been in all the budgets we've shared previously. There's been a roughly $1 million contingency carried within the budget for this building to deal with scope that had yet to be uncovered, which is typical in a project of this complexity when we're changing grade configurations, expanding a building, etc. So between the traditional contingencies that are built in, the budgets that are already there for the additions, and the current roughly $1 million contingency for unanticipated scope that would need to be handled, the boiler can easily be, I believe, and Andrew can jump in here for sure, can be handled within that dollar amount. The roof will explore further in terms of the ability to extend a warranty by refreshing that roof or adding another layer. But big picture, I don't think any of us are terribly concerned about tackling the boiler and some on the roof if this is the option the board proceeds with.
Yep, I'd agree that's accurate. We saw the question came up last week and reviewed it with the estimating team, and we're comfortable with where the budget sits, so.
Thank you for bringing that up, Brooke. And if the board doesn't have questions, we also wanted to revisit the middle school scope, so not trying to move us past this. If others have questions, please jump in there.
I have a question, Matt.
April, can you go back up one slide, please, to the main floor plan is what I'm looking at now? Can you tell me a little bit that where it says cafeteria expansion? That sounds really good. Is that more for seating area or serving area, or do you know?
No, great question. So it's likely a combination of both, but it was mainly focused on seating. The serving capacity and production capacity are being covered in the expanded kitchen note, as April's highlighting on the screen right now. Exactly what walls are moved, exactly how the flow works, that's still to be determined.
Sure.
We have also found that as we increase enrollment in schools, it's often easier to create what's called a remote servery. So maybe as part of the cafeteria expansion, we create a small area for serving only. The food is still all prepped across the cafeteria. You simply move it across to a serving location. And that can sometimes be more efficient from the perspective of staffing and operations to serve out of 2 kitchens or serveries versus 1. So big picture, we have the flexibility in both the plan as shown and the budget as developed to either concentrate all of our investment on a single servery or split those 2. But we feel very comfortable with the square footage commitment and the budget commitment that we'll be able to work out all the details of that post-referendum if this is the option the board elects to proceed with.
Sure. And I think my other only question right at this exact time is, can you remind me, like, what's currently where it's labeled like expanded kitchen in that area? What is that currently?
We've got some backup house receiving and things of that nature, which will also be massaged into this plan. Whether it's offsetting some of that elsewhere into the renovation square footage, or as I noted, maybe we just expand the prep component of the kitchen and then the serving moves elsewhere.
Okay.
But that piece of the kitchen renovation has been, I would say, consistent for every option we've explored, regardless of bringing more students here or not. That's been a key piece of every option considered at the IS from the outset of these conversations.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Matt, I have a
Yes.
question about actually the budget part of it, where you have the expenses like detailed out a little bit. So, I haven't seen that slide come up, but, on there you have this renovation medium, and then it has the renovation for the kitchen and the kitchen equipment. But what is really the renovation medium? What does that really entail? Because I'm assuming the kitchen part is all the kitchen and the cafeteria expansion. So I'm wondering what that $1,480,000 is.
Yeah, thanks, Jan. I'll turn that to Andrew, as he was instrumental in creating that budget.
Yeah, so when we look at the renovation heavy, for example, in the kitchen, we're going through and moving the walls and having to relocate them, and therefore having to relocate all the mechanicals and electricals in that area. When we classify it as the medium renovation, maybe we're moving a door, but not relocating walls, and going through and refreshing finishes, probably moving diffusers and light fixtures, but not, moving walls is probably the biggest thing that's different in those 2 square footage calculations.
So, but what part of the existing school is that in? Just the pink part?
The areas you see highlighted in pink, essentially.
And then the amount for the fire alarm system, I'm assuming part of that is for the new additions, but for it to be almost $625,000 for the fire alarm system?
Essentially going through and upgrading the system to bring it up with the code that you would build into the standard you'd be building a new facility for as well. And those would be separate.
Yeah, sorry, Andrew. Jan, that's a great question. And so what happens is when we add on to a school, current code requires what's called an addressable fire alarm system. It's got a variety of different requirements for visual strobes and horns and other technology. So the current code requires that type of a system. And we can't have 2 systems operating in a school. We can't have the current, I'll call them the gray existing areas on one system type and the addition on another system type. So that line item is acknowledging that the whole school would have a fire alarm system that aligns with today's code, not just the yellow addition areas.
And I don't wanna hijack that topic, but that current system is aged and finding parts for it is very difficult. So it needs to be updated at some point anyhow.
And
Just a
just
throw
to
that out there.
take on to that, when you go and do those updates, you're likely required to update the whole system then.
Great questions, Jan. Appreciate you asking them.
I have another question about the middle school, but I'll let you talk about that first.
Sure. Any more board questions regarding the IS/elementary school? Obviously, we can come back to it if the board would like. Well, when we move to the middle school, and this we've talked about a couple of times, maybe obviously not in quite as much detail probably as the elementary IS, just because of the amount of scope considered, but in general, the middle school proposal to move 5th grade over involves a series of renovation projects along with a site improvement project to provide playground equipment to support 5th grade students. So as noted on the plan, we have a budget allocated for the playground for 5th grade. I think as asked a couple of times previously, we don't have an exact solution yet. Where is it gonna go? How much parking is it gonna take, et cetera, et cetera. But we have the dollars available to do it. So that's the most critical part going into our referendum. The areas that are shown on the plan as renovation are generally taking existing spaces that are not being used for education. The 8th grade classroom is an example. That's Becky's former office and a variety of other minor functions, but not direct day-to-day kid-based instruction. So that room can somewhat easily be recaptured for a classroom. It has natural light. It's obviously in a corridor of other classrooms, so it's a natural minor renovation to accommodate an additional classroom. As we move into the more traditional section of the school, the rooms labeled spec ed, or sped, sorry, 5th and 6th in the lower left, sensory, et cetera. Those are a variety of things. Right now, a number of those classrooms are being used because they're available. So hypothetically, they're being used for a type of instruction that maybe 5, 6 to 8 students with an instructor, or they may only be used 2-3 periods a day. because of the specialized nature of that instruction. So what this proposal does is suggests remodeling the room to the right of the sixth grade label there, the two rooms, remodeling that to become a dedicated set of smaller classrooms, which makes sense to support the number of students that are in those programs and are, I think, a better use of space throughout the day because they're not being used every period of the day. Same thing with the sped room labeled adjacent to the library. And what that allows us to do is the fifth and sixth grade classroom in the lower left-hand corner, along with, I believe, at least one of the sixth grade classrooms that's not proposed for renovation on the left side of the plan, which is currently being used for special ed instruction. It allows us to return those three classrooms in addition to the classroom labeled eighth grade. It allows those to be returned to the traditional classrooms where we can put a day-to-day classroom teacher back in there. So that was the analysis done with support of the leadership team and principals, and district team, Becky and others. If I missed something specific to this plan, please jump in and offer more context. But I think that this plan has felt pretty good in terms of maximizing utilization of current space, and to a certain extent, I'll say right-sizing some spaces so that we aren't using a full classroom 2 periods a day for, and again, I'm making this up, 6 to 8 kids, maybe more, maybe less. But that was the rationale behind this plan in being able to put fifth grade in with an expenditure beyond what's currently identified.
So Jan, when you look at that, where, bottom left where it says sixth and fifth grade.
Yeah.
Right now, the fifth grade labeled room is used as a classroom all day long, so that's a regular classroom. It's an odd shape because it's a temporary wall, so it's a large classroom right now. Whereas the bottom left room is labeled sixth grade right now. That's a counselor space right now because it's a very small group. So basically, all that has to happen in that room is a permanent wall needs to be in to split the spaces evenly into 2 even classrooms. And then the one that's in the middle that is labeled special ed on the right, kind of, that's a tiered room right now. It used to be the old choir room, so all that has to happen there is turning that into one level, so it can be a safe classroom for kids to be in. So it would take out that tiered approach. So all of the renovations here are pretty minor. It's just that we have to turn them into actual functioning safe classrooms. Do you have any other questions about the layout right now?
No.
Okay.
There's a few, like, tech is not here and a few people that normally work here. Would they go into that kind of library space at intermediate school? Is that the thought where they would end up? Okay. I kind of assumed, but, and it's a detail, right? So to be determined,
Yeah.
but
To be determined, yeah.
priority is figuring out classrooms, right? So.
Any other questions again from the board on either of, and we only focused here on option 3 because that's the one that changed a little bit from last time based on the daycare decision and board direction. So obviously just hang on and see what other conversations occur, but happy to jump in and answer any other questions you have.
So in this fifth grade in the middle school, it has renovation/light, but really it's the renovation of those classrooms probably plus some lighting. But right here it just says lights, and it's like for $440,000. I'm going, we have that much of a cost just for lights?
We could probably clarify that, but it's intended to note a light renovation rather than a medium or heavy. So in the different spaces, there's probably some that may be considered medium, but when we looked at them holistically, it's really just a light renovation in those purple boxes or pink boxes at 4,500 square feet.
Any more questions on that? If not, we'll move on to Debbie.
Could we for just a moment to hop up? Thank you.
So this you've seen quite a few times.
the difference between this month and last month is that option 2 has been removed. Still labeled option 1, option 3. The last time we had talked a little bit of, so these estimates are the mill rate estimate, $1.64 and $1.32, based on that wraparound structure. Last time we talked about how we could communicate a higher mill rate impact if we wanted to do level debt service. But it sounded like, as a board, the wraparound with the lower impact was the preferred. Am I hearing that correctly? Yeah, okay. So we're still looking, as we explore options 1 and option 3, at $1.64 per thousand for option 1 and $1.32 per thousand for option 3. And these are still those same estimates that we've been talking through. So multi-phased approach over 21 years, interest rate of 5.5%. So if we go to the next slide, I just wanted to share with you, when we first started running this scenario, we were reminded that although interest rates at that time had increased, or we had been hearing in the environment that they had, we are still lower than we were 30 years ago. I just want to highlight the 1-year snapshot in the upper right-hand corner. You may be hearing that interest rates have come down as of late, and that is true, that is what we're seeing. So we have not adjusted the 5.5% that we're using in the planning rate. It just makes that planning rate more conservative. So when we first started, it was conservative. As interest rates came up, it was still conservative, but not as much. And now it's just making it back to that conservative again. So reminder that when the referendum passes and we go to actually issue, you'll get to lock in at the lowest rate available at that time. So this is just an indicator of where the market is, and it's looking favorable right now for the estimates. Doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. We can't guarantee it, but thought it helpful for you to see and know. The last couple of slides are rounding out our levy and mill rate picture. Earlier, Shannon talked about how the operational referendum is retiring. So I just want to be clear that we're communicating the impact on the debt service portion. So we're comparing debt service to debt service. Because you have the operational referendum expiring and the district is not going back and therefore cannot levy those dollars, those will be going away from your operational budget. So it is possible that next year, when you go to set the levy, the resulting mill rate will likely not be $1.64 per thousand more, because we're essentially turning off that operational referendum and turning on the debt. However, so that we are transparent in the debt-to-debt comparison, which we've been doing throughout, we are still continuing to communicate the debt impact. So we're going from what we levied for debt this year to what would be the additional that would be needed. And in this scenario, we're using option 1 amounts, just because it's the higher amount, higher impact. It'd be a similar visual for option 3. We aren't recommending one or the other, we're just using this as demonstration. The yellow portion would just be smaller if the board chose to use option 3.
Do you have an idea as to what, if nothing changed, as an estimated what the mill rate would be once the $3 million falls off?
Yeah, we purposefully left that off.
You're welcome.
Right now, based on this estimate, it looks like it could be near what it is this year. And that is merely taking the operational levy this year, taking off the non-recurring referendum amount, and using the forecast model, looking at a $8 million levy, for example, for operations, and then layering everything on. We don't want to promise an amount today that we know won't be that exact amount.
Right.
As this moves forward. That doesn't help anyone in the setting. So our final slide is, earlier we had shared the mill rate comparison for 22-23 because that was the data that was available. This is looking again at the total school mill rate, and we've updated it with 23-24 for you. And so the district this year is within the bottom three of your conference comparables. And so next year, if the mill rate stays similar or even has a slight increase as we trade the non-recurring with the potential new debt, you would still be within your comparable group as it looks today. So if you'll go back, the last slide is just questions. So if you see there's a slide 5, or it's just disclosures. If we go back to slide 1, just coming back to these, are there any final questions on this as you look to further discussion today?
So if I'm hearing what you were saying, this sample, if you just take $100,000 property, an estimated $13 to $11 a month per $100,000 of value, that wouldn't necessarily be on top of what their tax bill is currently, because that with that $3 million referendum falling off, it may be unchanged. And that's just the cost of the project.
Correct.
At face value, that doesn't translate directly to a tax bill.
It translates to the debt portion of the tax bill, but their total will likely not reflect this because you have those non-recurring operational dollars falling off, correct? And you are not allowed, you will not be allowed to add those unless you go to referendum, and that's for operations, and that's not the intent. Sure.
Questions for Debbie? No? All right. Well, we are here, and it was a fast 20 days, wasn't it? Yeah. So I had asked before the meeting if our student reps would like to share some thoughts, opinions, questions they have, and they both eagerly said yes. So,
Can I put a pause on that?
Yep.
Because I do have a few more logistical questions.
oh, yeah, go for it.
Before we get to that, unless you two are like so excited to share.
No, you go.
More for Matt and Andrew.
Okay.
I do have some questions, sorry to go back a little bit, but if you go back to the slide you just had up, because I gained more questions up, yes.
Option 1 or option 3?
Either, start with option 1, and so I'm not a technical person. My question is the parking spots on option 1 versus the parking spots on option 3. Like on option 3, what I would call, they seem to look kind of to scale. Like there's gonna be 2 rows of parking there for like what? 30, however many spaces. On option 1, are those 5 lines of parking 6 to scale, or does that make sense?
Yeah, Kaisa, and Clint's not here to defend himself again, so I'll say yes, they are to scale.
Okay.
And if they're not, he's fired a second time.
Well, that's what happens when you don't show up.
No, I'm kidding.
I am too.
They are to scale. The scale of the site plan you're looking at is much smaller. We're just zoomed in tighter on the option 3 site plan. And the reality is, for the most part, and district team, correct me if I'm wrong, parking at the intermediate school, even if we bring a couple more grades over, day-to-day, the parking isn't really a concern. At least from my experience being there somewhat regularly, it's not the quantity of parking for day-to-day. Events, yep, that can challenge it. Drop-off, pickup, yes, that's always a challenge regardless of where we build. But just day-to-day parking for staff, regular visitors, etc., my belief is the parking for the building is more than sufficient. So I'll stop there quick and just let the district team verify.
we currently don't park staff in that middle row because that's where parent drop-off is.
Yep.
So if you pull the parent drop-off piece out of it, then you could have people parking there, so,
We park,
just along that
towards the
color.
grass there by towards the road right now.
Yep.
And everybody fits.
Yeah, so Kaisa, big picture, I guess personally I'm less concerned about parking. I think drop-off pickup from the perspective of either plan is always gonna be our biggest challenge, and we've talked about this at the board table for many, many years now, is even with a brand new site, we're not gonna get a long enough drop-off length, that reasonably, that supports the afternoon pickup. So we do the best we can. And there's a chance that this plan, maybe as we get into the detailed design, where the current delineation, the middle drive, I'll call it, with the little pedestrian stripes shown, right in the middle of the plan.
Yeah.
Maybe we decide as a group that should shift to the left slightly, and we create a safe median so that parents and buses can drop off on two sides, for example. Those are the developments that come as this plan goes from concept to reality.
Yeah,
And that's why those additional dollars are built into it, to make sure those kind of tweaks can be made when we're collectively looking at this through the lens of it's real versus it's a concept.
and I get that. It catches me a little bit, it hangs me up a little bit, and we'll get to that, but as I think of more of like having two gyms there and how full, like I see the intermediate school get sometimes, the elementary school with a gym, so I'm thinking, our hope is to have those gyms utilized as often as we can. Just curious what that might look up, and obviously the pickups and drop-offs, so it scares me a little bit, but, okay, so that was just a question I had. How about, and I am curious to know, with this option 3, the main door entrance stays where it's currently at, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And that stays the same entrance for what I'm just for sake of ease,
Can you go to the next one?
the yellow part, in elementary or intermediate, whatever you call that, it's still, they use the main entrance of what's currently there.
But you'll notice in the, if you go back to the option 3, like where it zooms in a little bit more, there's 2 offices, so potentially.
Just scroll down.
Yeah, just scroll down, there you go. So there's an office.
What we will work out, Kaisa, is, I will say in the morning, as an entrance, when people are dropping kids off and buses are dropping off,
Yeah.
likely kids will flow into the school in more than one entrance.
Okay,
Once the day starts, the district, in this plan, will have the option of only allowing the current entrance to be the secure entrance, or, if you want, allowing the other office to be set up in the same fashion that visitors could come there as well.
okay. So that was one of my next questions too, is where it says office in the yellow there. It wasn't clear to me, is that like an office spot for like a site or someone, or is that more of a front office, like you're thinking, I'm traditionally used to like a?
We aren't there yet. So we needed an office space there, it's what will be in that space, just haven't gotten there yet.
Could be an associate principal, could be a variety of functions. It may end up pushing itself further over towards 4K, so that there is an adult presence at times when 4K and 5K parents come. The goal was to get the square footage into the budget in the plan, knowing we need something, but the exact function is to be determined.
Sorry to interrupt.
No.
This 4K hallway, there, would it be lockers?
Typically Cubbies at 4K, but that's a decision that the district can make. They're generally the same price.
Got it.
So we would program Cubbies traditionally for 4K.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
I think I have all my questions answered now. Thank you. in regards to that stuff.
Alright. What do you guys think? Who wants to start?
I personally like number one.
Okay.
I feel like it's more space for the kids to have as like their own space. Whereas here they're kind of in like number three, they're kind of all muscled together.
Sorry, I typed up 5 things in no particular order. It was just the order that I thought of them. Most of them are against option 3. I also agree with them. I don't like option 3. It's better money-wise, but I think from a student standpoint, option 1 is the better option. Firstly, the cross-country course would have to be altered. This cross-country course at Osceola, just because that's where it starts, this cross-country course is recognized statewide. We've had to turn teams away this year because of how competitive it's getting. The boys cross-country team has gone to state 8 out of the past 8 years. The girls cross-country team has gone to state 6 out of the past 8 years. It's, well-known, well-used, so changing that, not a major issue, but it is still.
It's the first thing my wife brought up. It's legit.
You can tell you something I hadn't thought of yet, so I appreciate your feedback.
Second thing is not having a daycare plan in option 3, which I know is still just a topic that is being discussed, but I think especially with enrollment being down, having a daycare will increase that enrollment, which will also increase funding. The flex classrooms on the second level, just from a personal standpoint, I don't love because they're all the way across the library. And maybe that's something that will be changed, but having those flex classes, which will most likely be used for a 4K or 5K classroom, will be a little disrupting in a library setting, especially if they have to leave for lunch or if they're leaving to go anywhere else for recess. Having to cross the entire library, I don't know, just seems like not something I would openly advocate for. I think the long hallways, when I walk in the intermediate school, I already don't like the long hallways, but it's fine because they're not that long. Adding the additional long hallway, if there were any school to have long hallways in, it would be this school, because most of these classes are very stationary. They're staying inside their class most of the time, whereas middle school and high school are gonna be flexible with their classes and having to move around a lot. The only issue I really saw with this was lunch, because having your youngest students walk the farthest can be a little exhausting at times, but again, not a really crucial issue to have. The middle school playground, having to add some sort of playground equipment for the 5th grade students, having to take away some of that parking was an issue I really found was important, because especially during sporting event days, a lot of that parking lot is completely filled all the way up until the current Gaga pit and whatever, like all the basketball hoops are always filled. Even though it's not designated for parking, it's still always filled. But also that is where a lot of the buses will drop off football players or soccer players, have them turn around, and then not having that area will, I think, eventually become an issue if we take off that part, because that's where a lot of buses park for everything. So just an issue, I thought. And then the last thing is, as a former student of the middle school, the middle school dismissal time is already very rushed and crowded because of how many students are in the hallways at the end, because there's every single student going for their backpack in the hallways, and then everyone's leaving at the same time, and then it's so slow to walk through. I personally have missed the bus multiple times because of how long it takes, and partially that's just because I talk a lot. But it is an issue I think could increase if we add an additional 130 students to that population, especially in the intersection of the 8th grade and 7th grade hallway, because I go over there every single Thursday for kinship, and having to walk through that hallway at the end of the day is exhausting for me, and I can see over everyone, so I can see that like there's everyone there, and so I just think that like that type of crowded is not something we would wish to have, especially during flu season, during flea season, like any type of illness. You don't really want people close together, so
I mean,
yeah.
there's truth.
So those are the points that I raised. That's why I think option 1 is probably safer for us, just because having those, the 4th grade through 1st grade, all in one building, all at a younger age, will really, I think, help people connect a lot better. And it won't be as crowded as option 3 will, but it's just my opinion.
So the dismissal point was an interesting point, because I recently found myself in this 5th grade hallway with dismissal, and I've never seen like grown children, because they're not like little toddlers anymore, fleeing for their life as fast as they were like.
Yeah.
So when I initially saw this plan, the middle school plan, I was like, oh, we're moving everyone, but at the same time genius, because those are those
Also,
youngest
they have
legs.
like 5 minutes, they're waiting.
I know,
For the
but
high schoolers to get on the bus, and they're
It's
okay.
so dramatic. So, and then to see then 8th grade down there, I mean, they can take one walk to like 3 of the 5th grade, so, to me, then I was like, that's a genius, a little bit of a genius move there too, so. And to be clear, on the OMS proposal, these 8th grade rooms is where 3 of us had 5th grade, so that was our 5th grade hallway, so, right, Corey, 5th grade then?
I have 5th grade, I swear where the 5th grade rooms currently are.
Oh, really?
I had Judy Hardman, I believe, in that room, and I had Mrs. Green giving me the hairy eyeball, she called it, because I too was a talker. So, yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
See, I had 5th grade where the 8th graders are, 6th graders where the 7th graders are, 7th graders where the 5th graders are, 8th graders where the 6th graders are. They learned after you.
Changed it after Corey.
I talk more during the flu season.
Well, thank you guys for giving us your insight and opinions.
Appreciate it.
That's super helpful. Alright. Questions, thoughts, how do we move forward from here, board?
Well, I'll start by saying where I sit. I still sit on option 1. I think it's the best option, long-term. I think if we're looking very short-term, option 3 looks really more enticing, but I think in 5 to 10 years from now, a majority of us sitting here will fully regret going option 3. So, I've always been option 1. I'll stay option 1. I think the majority of our voters are option 1, and that's why I ran for this spot, was to give them their voice. So option 1 it is for me.
How will the voters feel when we go to referendum in 2 years?
That's, how are the voters for option 3 gonna feel? The same way, they're paying money, they're not gonna look at it in a couple of years thinking, well, they saved me $6 million, so now I'm definitely gonna vote. It won't matter. They're gonna be like, we built me either way.
I would think if we don't try to do something to have some cost savings up front, when we go to a referendum in 2 years to do operation, the first thing is kind of, is what did you do to try to save money? Well, you built the 4th school again? You did nothing.
I would argue that we are cutting down, if we do option 1, the size of the building, because we're cutting, I don't want to say we're cutting class sizes, but rooms. But we're also, we're currently, do not want to say the word eliminating, because that is not the word. Being creative with how we're filling positions that are being vacated. I have full faith in our current leadership being much more creative-minded, being very open to making some of those everyday, I don't wanna say elimination or cut, because that scares people, attrition, being cognizant of that, that we're going to say, look, we have done these things, like, so there's that piece of it as well.
I'd say we're also saving money by finally putting it on a ballot now and not stalling another year. We would have saved money if we would have put it on last year, hence here we are, because we stalled. At some point, we have to do what's right. Again, option one and option three, great. Option one, I think, is long-term, a better option, but short-term.
Yeah, what do you think the regret would be in 10 years if we went with option two?
Spacing. As a person that currently teaches in a building that is kind of combined with more grades, kind of like option three, it's a disaster. There's a lot of days where you kind of wish it wasn't like that. As a staff member there, look at the students, the intermingling between the lowest grade level, in that case, it's like, we get 5th and 6th graders coming up into the high school, blocking by 12th graders, a lot of shenanigans, it's just a mess. And then you get shared staff, because even if we were to say right now, maybe we won't share staff, eventually we will, I don't care, it's gonna happen. And that sucks. It sucks for scheduling everything. And if you wanna do a high school thing, oh, we got shared staff in the high school, with middle school, we can't. There's so many other issues that arise that aren't on this, that I will need more than tonight to go over every issue we have at St. Croix Falls with shared staff and having that many grades together. It's more than just money. It is the kids, the spacing, and as a special ed teacher, spacing is huge. As a father of an autistic kid, spacing is huge. And when we cram those age levels, I don't know, it's just option one, that's all.
Well, I continue to spend a lot of time seeking input from people and looking at data and talking to staff and trying to look long picture, but acknowledging the price, and acknowledging the planning moments. Not knowing what our budget will be in a few years, because they can't tell us till after it's too late. Those are all very frustrating.
Not you.
Correct. No one in this
Right,
room,
clear.
to be clear, thank you.
Yeah.
A concern I had earlier on this process was, we didn't necessarily have options on the table, was we're not going to get a lot of people that support option one. As I'm doing more exploring and talking, I truly feel we have just as many people who are not going to vote for option three because they want option one. I am hearing just as many people, that don't believe that is right for our district and don't want to proceed that way.
I'd say people that are sitting at home that don't wanna build a new school are gonna be very excited if we go option three, because I think that has a worse chance of passing than option one. So people that don't want a new building should hope we go option three. It'll be tougher to pass.
I think it's really risky either way we go, and that frightens me, because so kind of goes back just this week, do we not do it right now? Anything? We have to, because we have to, because last year it was cheaper to build a new school than it is to remodel an intermediate school right now. And getting my tax bill, my taxes went up almost $800, I get that. but we need to ask the question. People have told us, ask the question, they want us to ask the question. People are, I want a survey in our data, and when I'm talking, people are saying, I want a new building. I think I don't like the risk. I want more for our district. It concerns, option 3 is more unsettling to me just because I'm afraid of all the unexpected costs that might come up, and I know we have $1 million put into our budget, but that can go quick. It's just not as, firm to me as versus building a new school and you get this and this and this, because there's no surprises. So that piece I'm a little leery of. The new building is more controlled, I guess, in that aspect for me.
Well, both our partners know what they're doing, they've done this a few times, so. If we turn to $1 million contingency, we got the wrong partner.
I'm just, you hear it all the time though, Craig.
I mean,
That's
I have
just something
faith
in my head.
the 10 million projects, right? We stuck to budget. We
Yeah.
got the projects done, they're of high quality, very overall pleased with the way that the middle school turned out, so that's a plus, I think, too, right?
And I think that's a plus for them too, if we do new either way, because we were able to get so much more done than we thought, because they were transparent and helped, they were accountable, everyone would work with.
Okay, so I apologize if I can just quickly jump in.
Please
I wanna
do.
be clear that the $1 million that we've been referencing is the round number. That is just for scope that we haven't determined yet, or the board elects to do. That is not for the unforeseens. So if we start digging for foundations and find soils that aren't suitable, there is a separate contingency, not the $1 million, a separate contingency to handle all those unexpected things. So I just wanna make sure everybody understands that it's not like when the first dollar past 1 million is expended on unforeseen things, suddenly there's an issue. Not at all the case. There are dollars here to protect the district through the entire construction process. And we would not start construction without a reasonable contingency to protect you against anything that is unforeseen that comes up during the process.
And I would
Not trying to
imagine,
interrupt, I just wanna make sure there's clarity on what that $1 million was.
No, I appreciate that.
and that goes for both options, right?
Correct.
That's correct.
Becky knows this, I've talked to her, I've talked to a lot of people. I struggle a little bit with the functionality of some of these. If we did go option 3, is a big change for how our district functions day to day. And I struggle with a lot of those unknowns, especially when there's so many, and I get that we can't know everything right now, like what schedules, which schools might be on, or what a lunch might look like. The parking, I'm really concerned about drop off, pick up.
Already so much better than the current elementary school, either option, so.
I don't
For me,
know
it's
that
a
I agree with that, but, because I sit in the current middle school line, and I have some concerns there on the thought of going on kids, not to say that we can't figure it out, because we have creative people here. There's just so many moving pieces, and how does that impact every learner? It's hard for me to wrap my head around some of those things, and just thinking long term. when we have the land, we have the support for a new school, the tax impact, I mean, if you look at a $200,000 home, it's $64 a year difference. And I know there's costs that you can save between 3 and 4 buildings. I appreciate that. I know that. I don't wanna come back in a year or two asking for additional funding if it's to work on parking, or if it's, I don't know exactly what it would be. I feel more confident with option 1, and I truly believe that's what's best for our kids, and that's what people are saying they want to bring to the ballot and give them that option. Is
Option three.
my thoughts.
If I had to go with an option, it would be option 3. Because when that building was built, we told the taxpayers that we would add on to that building. It's not uncommon to have a building that size. I know, Corey, you said that next year, but it's not uncommon to have an elementary school for K and 4 or even 5. So, it's not uncommon. I think it gives us more flexibility as our enrollment, when they increase, moving the grades around than if you had the school up on the hill, and then you have the shared staff, like Corey said, or whatever. I think it just causes more problems. So I like the flexibility of option 3. And we've had 5th grade in the middle school, so that's not new, to have a 5 through 8 building, and it's common in our conference. And with our enrollment decreasing, that's how I feel.
We've had 5 through 8 before, but we've also sat here these past few years and talked about the significance of why we don't want our 5th graders with our 8th graders, or for that matter, our 4K kids with our 2nd graders. We've also argued that for years, how that's not best for our kids, so I see that both ways. And I think, you know, flexibility, if we have 5th graders here, we're likely gonna have shared staff again anyway, between the intermediate and here. And I think we're not adding daycare right now, hopefully we can do that in the future. Can we draw people by still maintaining our uniqueness? A lot of people like that we have, and appreciate that we have our littlest learners separate. So is that a draw? I'm not sure. So many of these things I think can be argued either way, so I ultimately think it comes down to what does our community want, and listening to them, and what has the most benefits for our kids and the least impact or shuffle of us all around. I'm hung up too on the whole. For years we've said, we're not gonna do this, it's not what's best, it's not what's best for our kids. And you know, in 2 or 3 months, it's like everything's changing. The thoughts on that, I struggle with that.
Other thing we haven't talked about, and Shannon brought it up, that 2.8 deficit next year. What's happening with that? I mean, you want this on the ballot, but we're gonna have a deficit, so what does that do to the district? And then what does it look up like going out in 24, 25, 25, 26? We can't just focus on 23, 24, and we know we have a $2.8 million deficit next year. No one's talking about that part either.
I think we're talking about it all the time, and we have been for years, but, and we're talking talking about that, like I said earlier, we're making attrition, we are being due diligent. We don't know if the state's coming back, I'm not certain that we'll be back for operational in a year or two. And again, we can't wait on this, we can't keep delaying it, the people, and it's not, we owe it to them to make that choice.
Well, that way you don't go for an operational referendum in 2 years or so, that got deficits spent, so it's a decision the board can make, right?
Right.
But I too am coming on the side of, both options are good, right? And we have to do something, but I'm leaning more towards option 3, with the addition of the intermediate, just because of the things Jen had indicated earlier. I was on the board at the time that we built the intermediate school for those very reasons. But then also, like I said earlier, knowing what's coming in front of us, and we have more spending to go back and ask our taxpayers from, I'm gonna be honest with you, in 2 years, I'm on the other side of the table, I'm not here anymore, right? And I'm telling you, my first question to you is gonna be, what'd you do to save money? What did you do to even attempt to do something to justify coming to me for another operational referendum?
And I will tell you, we put this on the ballot now instead of stalling again.
That doesn't save money.
It does. It would have saved us, what, 7 million if we would have did it last year, roughly? That's saving money, instead of sitting on our butts and stalling it out because we're afraid to put it on there, which is what I got from that. But I get what you're saying, like, I can't ignore the fact that, yeah, it's a cheaper option. But again, like you're saying, we can't just get stuck on this year. Well, we can't just get stuck on next year either and have next year's deficit be the only reason why we choose option 3.
Well, that's not why I'm choosing
Well, that's what it
option
sounded
3.
like to me, because it sounds like that's the only number we're looking at, like, well, next year we're gonna have a deficit, so we should be careful on doing this. When we're doing a long-term building, and we're worried about, I know we should be worried about next year's thing, but that shouldn't be the one reason why we're worried about picking that one option over the other.
I think if we go with option 1, 2, we're picking that because that's what we're comfortable with. We know how 4 buildings operate. We're comfortable with that scenario.
As a teacher, I'm comfortable, I know what it's like to be in a building like, it will look like an option 3. And I'm not comfortable with that because I actually currently work in it. So I'm comfortable with both options, and I'm telling you, as a worker in that building, I would, as an employee, if I am picking between employment, which now I would never apply here because I'm on the board, I'm happy on the board. But if I had a choice, like if everything was the same between whatever, and I knew that I was gonna love my job either way, but it'd be way less stressful as a staff member, it's way more, it's just a better looking fit for a teacher to wanna move into a building that's, or a district that's not option 3.
I think, the one thing though that you're not discussing or thinking about is the separation of our amazing staff from bridging to caring for and teaching those same students. I think there is a discord between the buildings. You're teaching similar things, but you're in your own silo and you're not, I'm gonna look to you guys. How often are you getting ELA teachers from 3rd grade together with 8th grade to look at how we're growing the whole kid? I don't think it happens, right? Well, yeah, because 3rd grade is drastically different than 8th grade. But if you put them all under one roof and you're working as a team, you're growing that student in one roof, under one roof, with all of those eyes looking, and you're gaining some efficiency. I'm gonna be the first person to say that when this building option 3 came up, I was like, nope, not interested, not even a little. And so I've really enjoyed exploring it actually, because my mind was not open to it at all. Absolutely was not. But the last 20 days since we sat here, I've been in every building talking to staff. I've been around the community talking to community members. I can almost look at everybody in this room and say, I've asked you, what option? Tell me why. Tell me your viewpoint. Tell me where you're sitting, and getting all of this insight and data. And the people that are not in the buildings are our non-parent, non-staff. Those are the ones that are turning out to the polls. And our school perception survey was not a fair sampling of this option scenario now, because it was option 1 and option 2, and we've taken option 2 off the table. So now we're left with option 1 and 3. We did an informal survey that had 24 respondents of the non-parent, non-staff. That
is 60% of our tax makeup, or our tax base. So then, okay, go back to it. What's best for kids? What's best for kids? Looking all the way around it. And I've done a lot of examining of what I thought was best for kids. And then guess what happened? Tax bills. They landed in everybody's mailbox. Everybody's got something to say about their taxes. We all don't like our taxes. We don't like them going up. We say nothing when they go down. Tax bills hit. We have 3 or 4 municipalities that got reassessed. People's school portion went up 30%. Yep, none of us like it. I just got to talk to high schoolers today. What kind of taxes do you pay? What kind of taxes? They're sitting in the back row. I said, what kind of taxes? I don't know. Where are your sources of taxes? I don't know. We talked about it, right? None of us like paying taxes, but yet I didn't design public education to be funded by taxes, but that's how it is. And so if I'm looking long-term, what is long-term for our district is just moving forward from this elementary school. Either option is gonna be a win if our taxpayers approve it. So then I come back down to, okay, what option is gonna be more supported? And I've heard very loudly from a lot of parents and a lot of staff that feel very strongly about this idea or this idea or this idea. And then as I start working through that list, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. I'm not opposed to 5th grade coming over as long as we maintain our block schedules, and yet our data shows that our kids are growing with block schedules, so I don't see them going away. So just moving forward from the elementary school is a win, right? And I think we're all 5 of us in agreement with that. No. Okay? So what I would be in favor for at this point is moving forward with option 3. And it's not gonna please everyone, and I understand that. But I think from an efficiency standpoint, from a meeting in the middle standpoint as far as taxes go, that it is a good place to start. So that's where I've landed.
And that's fine, I just have to appreciate, not everyone's taxes have gone up this year.
No, mine went down.
Exactly. So, I just don't want the fear of this past tax bill to be what determines this decision. So,
It certainly is not the only factor here by any means, but
we both know that.
yep.
And the decision isn't easy,
Nope.
we come on all sides of this, right, and that's why we're a board, right? We all have different viewpoints, and that's good, good conversation,
Why it's
right?
taking so damn long.
That's why, right? Get the facts, try to get the information. Brooke, you just made a comment though that I learned many years ago on the board the first time. Whatever decision we make, we're not gonna please everybody, you just gotta go with your gut, and most time, what you feel is right, so.
So we're there, and we look at, what do we do going forward? Are we going to adopt an initial resolution?
So just getting it out there, 4A is done. I'm thinking option 3 is on the majority.
Or it wouldn't be done because we didn't adopt.
Let's finish the conversation there.
I'm not, are you in support of option 3?
And Matt, we're solid on these dollar amounts, right? Even with those added questions I had today. Debbie, you,
Yes, we feel
Yes.
confident,
Okay.
and Andrew, please jump in. I think the dollar amounts are solid, and they've been validated multiple times over the last 6 months as we continue to develop and refine each of these.
Yep, that's accurate. We looked at them again last week.
all right.
Okay.
We should probably have a motion for A. Cause I think B is different, correct? So A would be the adoption of one of the 2 resolutions, and then B would be finishing off the timeline piece of it. Am I right?
Why did we go with option 3 as our adoption for obligation funds, we go for obligation bonds?
So
there's a motion by Craig,
I'll second it.
second by Jan. Further discussion on this item. I'm gonna call for a roll call vote. Craig,
Yes.
Jan,
Yes.
Kaisa?
No.
Corey?
No.
And myself is yes. Item B would be consideration and possible adoption of a resolution providing for a referendum on proposed issuance of general obligation bonds.
Not bad. Next minute I'll be.
Brooke, just as clarification, they're the same action, basically?
Yep.
So the second really is just authorizing, the district to place this on the ballot.
Correct. Yeah. But I'm just looking for which one you have on the screen to make that match. Okay, April, help me here. With the papers you have before us, we have sample ballots, option 1 for question 1, option 3 for question 1, and then a resolution providing. Is that the one that we're on right now then?
The one that's resolution provided.
Yeah, thank you.
You just have to hand that out.
Got it.
The two blank spots.
On the resolution for the 38-115, it has for the purpose of constructing and equipping the addition to the intermediate school and to serve as an early childhood to 4th grade. It doesn't say anything about doing anything at the middle school, so then you wouldn't be able to use that referendum money for the middle school. It doesn't have anything in this resolution
Go for it, Jen.
to do with the middle school. So then you wouldn't be able to use any of that 38 million on the middle school.
Jan, I believe that's correct. I
Yep.
believe we should get this
Yep.
language revised.
Well, it's right in there, but
We
it's
can
also
reach
in
out
here,
to
so.
Tom Griggs and see if he, right now, and see if he can suggest language if he's available.
Because I just, I had it on this one. Which is.
We would also have to add in the renovation of the intermediate school too, along with the middle school.
Matt, the other question too I would have is we're thinking about this now with the resolution portion here. Part of that 38 is demolition of OES?
Correct.
I have a
Do we
question.
need to be, do we need to be
I'm
specific
gonna
about
call
that?
Tom right now and see if he's available.
So
See
that
if
would
I
have
can-
to be in this
Do we have to state-
38, yeah,
Do we have to state that too, that we're gonna have demolition part of OES as part of this?
yeah.
Have we agreed that we're doing?
Well, there's a cost built into it regardless, you wanted to say it regardless.
But does that tie us to having to demonstrate?
It gives you the ability
The
to.
ability to.
Okay,
If you need to.
okay.
Because you can't, if it's not written in the resolution, you can't spend any money there.
Right, I didn't know if it meant that it tied it, that we had to do.
No, I think Jan described it correctly. You cannot use the dollars for anything not listed, but you're not required to use the dollars for the things that are listed.
Just like we're not required to use the full thing if it doesn't cost as much as.
Exactly.
That's
Good
what we're
comparison.
going for.
Matt, did you say you're gonna call him?
I tried, I don't have a cell phone though. I called his office and he didn't answer.
I don't have a cell phone either, but I'm sending an email right now.
So, we have a meeting January 3rd, can we, does that timeframe work?
That would work.
Okay.
I think as long as, my sense is we have clarity from the board, at least on a 3-2 vote, that the goal is to proceed with option 3. That'll allow us to begin the communication campaign planning, which will start in the next 2 days and then over the break a little bit. But I think January 3rd, if obviously up to the board, but if the board agrees, we will bring back revised resolutions for adoption on January 3rd.
What a great way to ring in the new year.
All right.
It will be.
Yeah.
Moving forward is exciting.
So this one's on the table?
We're gonna, postpone indefinitely. All right.
Need a motion?
I don't know that you need to do anything with these motions. I think you probably table them, or whoever knows the specific rules of how to operate, I believe you should table at this point, because these resolutions don't align with what you would like to adopt.
Sounds good. Item 5 is administrator and department reports. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for all of you that traveled and
Thank you.
for spending your time with us and spending time with home with us.
Thank you. Thanks, Megan.
Great night, board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Travel safe.
Christmas as well. Thank you.
Thank you, yeah, very good.
All right. That brings us up to administrator reports. Who wants to start? Okay.
I'm gonna read for me and then I'm gonna read for the high school as well tonight. We just had our band and choir concert, so amazing job to them. They always do a really, really nice job. So cool to hear the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, how they progress over time. So thank you to those two, band and choir teachers, Sarah Rhodey and Kurt Campbell, for doing what they do best and putting on a good show for us. Last Friday, the 15th, our 7th graders got to go to the Courage Retreat. We did it at Camp Waffle this year. That space was very nice for our kids to be able to use and a little bit more space to get things done. But basically they go there, there's facilitators that come and we talk about courage and like the fears that middle schoolers might have. We kind of admit those fears to each other and kids share out. They don't have to share out, but they make like a pact of what they're gonna do. It's called an act of courage, and then they try to move forward with that. And it's just something that we started last year, being able to go to mental health grants that we got. We're able to continue that this year, and yeah, it's just a really cool experience for our kids. We used it, I mean, even going into the 8th grade group this year, come back to those conversations that we had. And it was really cool. I was sitting in the office when 2 girls didn't want to go to the Courage Retreat because all of a sudden it wasn't cool for them to go. And one of our 8th graders walked in and I was like, can you believe they're not gonna go? And she was like, what? No, actually, I said, what was your favorite field trip of 7th grade? And she said, the Courage Retreat. And I said, can you believe they're not gonna go? What? This is the best trip of the whole middle school. So that was really cool.
Did they go?
Over roller skating.
Over roller skating and over canoeing and really fun things.
Did they go?
No, their parents came in and picked them up. Okay. I told them we would have our own private Courage Retreat then, when they get back.
And that's salted on them.
They were actually more excited to do that, but that wasn't effective. And then thank you to our student council and Mrs. Slutsky. On Friday, we have a big day coming up and our teachers are balancing academics in the morning with some party in the afternoon. We've got we have 2 rotations with lots of different activities that kids are signing up for, and then some movie rooms in the afternoon, and lots of doses of locker cleanout because that's a must before break. Lots of extra things for the lockers. And then Scott from the, lots of things are longer. Scott from the high school wrote, we definitely have had a busy December. We're closing the books on our yearly blessing basket fundraising. Thank you to Chad Leonard and Oscar for all their work in organizing events for our students and staff. The band and choir concert, I believe it was combined this year, was held on Monday. Holiday break activities, the wrestling team will be participating in the annual Northern Badger invite, typically over 40 schools, and our basketball teams are participating in back-to-back double headers versus Cameron and St. Clair Falls. And then staff and students have been great at OHS. We are definitely going through adjustments, but I'm extremely confident and proud in all that we do for kids.
So every year I have seen that we're working on blessing baskets fundraising, and I had no idea what it entailed for the students. Watching kids get chips and salsa and queso today, I was like, oh, where was this when I was there? And hearing Mr. Barrett yell, $1 down the hall, so it was pretty cool to.
We'll just hear it for a month and then you might change it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to middle school, high school the other day, and I got to hear Bob
Oh.
over and over while I was there.
Every
And it
single
wouldn't
happy
stop
period.
until someone paid for it. No one paid for it when I was there.
No, because they knew how much
I
the
can't
hand
get
signals
it,
were.
because I haven't heard it. so
Yeah.
I think
Oh.
I would have paid to keep it going, yeah. I think what was kind of amazing, was we got to watch blessing baskets roll out this year to a lot of families in our community. It was very impactful to me to see these families come in and the amount of things that our community supplied and provided for these families, from winter coats, socks, to toys for gifts, things for the parents, and it was amazing to see it from chips and queso in the math corner to making someone's Christmas and holiday and winter and even year a bright spot was pretty powerful. So it's a pretty amazing thing that our community does, and a lot of staff at both buildings that come together and do a lot of work for it, so.
I wish the kids could see that, and I understand they can't because of confidentiality, the impact that they have.
On that note,
Yes.
we're $4,000 down than when we were last year. We were at half as much as we were last year. And we started January 4th, we end tomorrow.
So why didn't you bring us queso?
I'm really sorry.
Start playing the.
So if you really like to donate, yeah, if you guys would really like to donate, donations are very much appreciated still. So, yes, I bought Chad's hair dye literally today.
And he's
So,
dyeing it with color?
pink, not pink. So, but,
We should have them come in.
yeah.
Thank you, Amanda.
Me?
Yes.
I've been itchy since you talked about the flea outbreak at the middle school, so thank you for that. Yeah, I know.
You really have been, haven't you?
I have, like, yeah, it's just, yep, I feel bad for anybody who else has stood by me. Here we go. Okay, we will start with the, we will start with the, elementary school. So last week, such great concerts were put on, the kids worked so hard. The entire OES community, OES specialists, Jordan, everybody did such a fabulous job getting the kids ready, and we just opened the doors and let the community in, and it was pretty cool. So had a few students help direct people where they're going, and it was a lot of fun. My little buddy that I was standing next to when my mom came in, you know, as grandma to see Brody, definitely tried to send her down the wrong way, and I watched it happen, like, so I got a kick out of it.
I did as well, because I was there.
Yeah, so I was like, whatever. So just a huge thank you to everyone. It's a really fun thing, lots of positive feedback from the community, just again, opening those doors up, and the teachers having those conversations with family members as well, and just getting to know where these kids are coming from was pretty powerful. We started a new initiative at the elementary school to help increase and close the gaps with some of those reading scores right now. So mirroring what we are currently doing in 3rd grade, where we have looked at that data and then kind of created small group classes where we pull in those reading specialists and our interventionists to kind of group kids all in one classroom. for about an hour, and then they go through some different skills, the foundational skills and pieces of reading. So again, very powerful. We're not pulling any students from grade level, like material and grade level pieces that they have to have, but yet after that part of it, then they go to another class and then they're getting all those skills that they have missed. So we are have finally rolled that out this week. Communication's been out to parents for this, for the parents that have the students that will be in that, and it's been a lot of positive feedback from the parents getting those messages too. So we're really excited about that, really excited to see where that data lands us at the end of the year. Our behavior data so far too, I think it's important to talk about that as well. As we rolled in about a month and a half ago, we kind of went back to those square roots of the elementary school where it's the OES way, bringing those PBIS and responsive classroom pieces back, rolling out the Chiefs and tickets and getting kids super excited for being caught doing the right thing, and looking at our documented behavior data. So that's the data that in our housing tool of EduClimber, that documented data, we have decreased our behaviors by 14%. So it's exciting. And the kids can feel it too because they're just, yeah, it is. It's a chieftain win, and they got to see us celebrate too on Friday because there may also be a big Rowie speaker at the elementary school now. Okay, intermediate school.
There was a dance party.
There was. 2 very good songs. Okay, so holiday concert for the intermediate school is tomorrow. Another hands down, everybody puts such hard work into this for the kids, and that again is our the intermediate school specialist and Jamie Nelson. They have so much passion for what they're doing. We cannot wait to open our doors. So loving this concert thing, and what a way to kind of go off into the holiday break, celebrating with families. So again, we're gonna open up our doors. We'll open up those academic wings and allow families to just see who we are and walk around and look at things and look at the way that we've decorated the ceilings and all the things that Randy is happy about. Huge thank you to the art club and student council. They put a lot of efforts into the concert as well with the backdrop and everything, with Roxy doing her amazing things, student council helping with that. Roxy is actually taking a group of student council on Friday. They've made ornaments and they're gonna go to the community, like what we've done with the pumpkins. So now they'll do it with Christmas ornaments. So huge thank you there. And then again, academic wise for the intermediate school, we are looking forward to, I say we, really it's probably just, I'm just that's most excited about it. But come January, we'll do our winter screening, see where the kids are compared to where they were in the fall, and that's gonna kind of give us that snapshot of like, all right, have we grown them? Is what we're doing working? Where are we possibly gonna be in the spring? So that's coming up here in January, so looking forward to digging into that data. So that's what I have.
Thank you. Debbie.
Okay, well, to kind of go off of what Julie's saying, December is the start of the testing season, so our access testing window opened. It goes until February 2nd. That's the assessment that we give to our English language learners. So big shout out to Nicole Brown, Erin Morrison, and Caitlin Carlson. So just making sure all of those assessments are completed, and so we can develop those plans for those learners. Also working on getting our approval for our ACT examinations. So for any students that have IAPs, we have to submit them. We don't actually get to control if they get those accommodations or not. So it's a long process, but that has to be completed, and we'll find out by January 19th if all of those have come through. And then also working on the alternative state assessment. So for a very small portion of our students take the DLM. So working with some case managers to get that training up to date for those students that take that assessment too.
What does DLM stand for?
Dynamic Learning Measure, right? Yeah, I was gonna say map, but.
When is ACT, April?
April.
Something, that time frame.
I'm not gonna say the date. 'Cause
I don't need a date, I'm just.
Okay, I think April.
Yeah.
Well, it's.
Yeah.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, no, good question. And then on a positive note, so Taylor Barrett, Amber Duholm, and Vaughn Liberty, they've brought back a Chieftain to Chieftain field trip. So they brought 26 students to the Rosedale Mall yesterday, students with IEPs, and then some of our student helpers, really working with students on budget and shopping and some of those practical life skills and social skills, so we're really thankful that they're able to provide those really important life experiences, so exciting stuff.
That brings us to Lindsay Thomas.
She was actually not gonna be here, so we deleted it, but not before it went out to April, so.
Oh.
She'll bring this to you next time.
Okay, sounds great. Shannon?
Another report that we typically see in December is the auditor's report, although I think in the last couple of years it's kind of strayed from that timeline. Again, this year, we're not gonna hit that, due to some new GASB guidelines and significant reporting changes from DECA, it will be delayed. I've been in communication with them, and we're still working to wrap things up. Talking about tax bills, we know that they've hit, and we know it's a challenging time for some community members. I don't know why they come out in December. I know that it was a different time of year. However, April and I have created a kind of a one-stop shop on our website for those community members looking for some answers on how we arrive at the numbers that we get to on the tax bill. So just taking that example, how it's calculated, some terminology, definitions, and then also looking at, again, just going over why some may be seeing an increase from last year to this year. If you want to flip that. Again, going through some definitions, we've put a link in there for BPI that they go over property valuation, could be, increased equalized values, other factors that go into that, and then if you want to scroll down, we've just given a few extra bullet points on stuff that has come down from the state that is a contributing factor in that tax bill. Again, looking at that mill rate from last year to this year, we are still below that state average, and then looking at that trend from 14-15 to 23-24.
I just really appreciate that you sent out a preview, and I know it was a lot of work, but I found it helpful. I think that I shared it with a few people, and everyone is learning from it, so.
Again, we recognize it's a challenge. Not everybody's properties are assessed at the same time, which I think is why you hear from, you're seeing one group or maybe 5 or 6 municipalities versus everybody, not understanding why some are going up or why some are remaining the same or going down. The village saw their significant increase about 2 years ago. Other factors for the village is that we had a large TID that came back onto the tax roll. That was a big factor in that slight decrease. There's a lot of things that go into the tax bill. The school district is one portion of it. This is just helping kind of define what our portion is.
Even I think if people don't understand it, they get maybe the sense of why it doesn't make sense. Just understanding how much more involved it is than you might.
It was very complex, and it goes through a lot of channels before it actually hits that final tax bill that you see and receive. So that was something that we've been working on, and then we did the December budget update.
Yes. I have 3 super exciting things. I mean, when you talk about a new law, that makes everybody really excited, but we in Wisconsin join about 20 other states that are now addressing in law early literacy, because it's become kind of a hot topic. So in our state, it's called Act 20, and specifically it looks at early literacy instruction, curriculum, assessments, interventions, and teacher licensing. And it's gonna be a lot, friends, to make this transition. The beautiful part is that we've started some of the work already. At the intermediate school, they've already done letters training or are going to complete it by the end of this year. It's a requirement for all teachers that are teaching students in grades 4K through 5.
All
Well, I'm
teachers.
sorry, 4K through 3, all educators. Yes.
Not all ELA educators.
No.
All educators.
Well, yes, ELA educators in Julie's building, but if they switch and decide to go from math to ELA, they have to have it. And eventually, the intent is the gap will be filled by colleges and universities, having students come out with that knowledge. But in the meantime, they're giving us this unfunded mandate. They did give us $5,000. I don't know if you have the impact of $5,000 doesn't go very far in the district. But also, I mean, even looking at our standards and our materials and making sure that we have the knowledge. Julie and I took the class this summer because, right, it was important for us to know, and just how you teach young people how you do consonant blends and how you make these sounds and all the expertise that these teachers have to deliver, it's a lot. So, I know why it's a new law, but it's a lot. And they're also going to say what materials you need to have, and they also are bringing a new assessment to us that has to meet certain criteria. And all of this starts next year.
And are they gonna pay for all the materials that they're telling us?
No, they are going to allow some people to get 50% back.
Oh, thank you.
Do, pairs get included in this or not?
They do not, no, not in this one. The highly qualified, para still exists in our district, and Jesse manages that. So all people go through the training, with paraeducator.net. So just kind of bringing that up, it's causing a lot of angst for people, and I really look at this as an opportunity for us to look at it and embrace it. It's good for kids, we're gonna figure it out, it's the right thing to do, and we have to. And then just talking about also the, state budget, mental health grant, we talked about that just a little bit. We did get finally what they consider our allotment to be. So you can see when it was competitive grant, we had a lot more potential. Now, we don't have to write a grant, which is kind of nice. I mean, I did like needing people to write the grant, but, it's a significant, reduction for what we were getting to where we are now. So just making sure that's before you. And then also the snapshot. So remember we talked all about the data for the report card, when that's pulled, and someone asked me, what did they pull? So I thought I would just share that with you. So now you know that the attendance, discipline, and the CTE information that goes on our state report card for next year was pulled just now in December. And then, with the third Friday count, that makes sense to go now. Then we also do a child count, which was new information to me. So then we are doing 2 different comparisons and looking at the data. So there are lots of people who have their, hands in all of this data and have done an amazing job in collecting it. So thank you in particular, Brian Marks leads that process to ensure that we have accurate data in our system. And the last piece is, first, I wanna apologize that the resolution wasn't correct. I hope you will let me chalk that up to a rookie mistake, like I literally read it, so thanks, Jen. Well, there's not 1 thing missing, there's 3 things missing, that's cool, I'll just sit over here quietly. So I apologize for that. And also, I wanna thank you for taking a huge leap right now. It's an extraordinarily difficult decision. It's something I was going to be happy regardless of the outcome, because to your points, doing something to work through that building was really important. So thank you for having the conversations, thinking it through, and coming to a decision. It's really appreciated.
Now we do the hard work of educating people.
Next up, we have the food service department report.
Y'all been waiting for.
Yeah.
That's what everybody keeps waiting for.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah, I think. Here.
Brief report, right? Just snapshot of where we are in December and what we're doing. Oh, am I gonna I like pictures. People like food. I want to start with this one just to kind of, in all this conversation tonight and kind of what we've done over the last 5 years now is, I feel like there's a Dr. Seuss pun in here somewhere, but feed them there, feed them here, feed them anywhere. That's what we do and we'll continue to do and what we've done and what we're still doing, and this is what we're doing. I'm really proud of what our team does for our kids with what we have and what we've been through and what we're continuing to do and offering as much as we can to kids to not only feed them nutritiously, but also to help them learn and educate them about good nutrition. Sometimes we only get 30 seconds at a crack, but we sure try. Whether it's new foods or how to cook things or just colors on their plate, but this is what we've been doing through the year and we'll continue to do. So I'm gonna go to my next slide. So here's my snapshot. Little acronym for you. The ADP is what we work with. That's our average daily participation. That's the number of kids that are grabbing lunch trays every day. So right now for lunch, we're at about 1,015 kids averaging a day, and breakfast is about 415 students a day. That's the percentage of our current
not enrollment, but of who is actually coming into the door in the morning. I can't feed them if they're not in school, so we take the percentage of who's in school, how many of those kids are eating breakfast and lunch. A little snapshot for you, our overall district free reduced percentage is 31.1%. That's divided out by the buildings, as you can see, our elementary school right now is a little bit of a bubble. Last year it was intermediate school. But what that does for us is, once we hit that 40% threshold, we are allowed a higher level of reimbursement for our breakfast programming there. So the more kids we can get through that programming at breakfast, the better. Last year we had that funding at the intermediate school and we were at that 40% rate. But that kind of fluctuates based on families and how those kids move up in the system. So the other thing to know, I think too, there's a lot of, at that 30% rate, there's also additional, I don't wanna say bonuses, but like field trips. A lot of organizations and different things will provide discounted rates at 30%. So we get that for intermediate, but not at our upper levels. Any questions about ADP or percentage or anything?
What of your buildings participate most in breakfast?
Definitely in your elementary. Part of that too is adding that 4K programming all day long and having them in there and kind of coming through and getting that how we do breakfast at elementary school and that trial run for the year. We definitely have that, and I'll kind of talk about it too on the other side as far as one of our successes is was it last year or the year before, we added sort of the breakfast after the bell, or we kept breakfast open at the high school till about 9:30. High schoolers don't eat at 7 in the morning. Some of them don't get here until 9 o'clock. So by keeping breakfast open till 9:30, we've really increased our breakfast participation at the high school. We're still about 27% of the total kids, but the fact that about 50% of those kids that are coming to breakfast are coming after the bell or coming later in the morning, that's definitely a win for us, because we were missing out on all those kids that need breakfast, that wanted breakfast, but we weren't offering it. So, and then about the same for OI and OMS as far as breakfast participation. Things I'm currently working on or that are on my buffet table of things to do. Oh, I'm sorry,
Quick question.
Yep.
On the lunch participation at 32%, what are the other 27% doing?
Right? I would love to know that. I think part of it is just, food is very personal. And if I can look back for years prior to COVID, we've always somewhere been between 70 and 76%. I think, there's food intolerances, allergies, people maybe aren't confident in what our programming does. People have very particular food tastes. Maybe it's a diet pattern they follow that we don't offer.
So they can bring their own lunch, right?
Yes, yeah. So I feel like there's probably just that niche that we're never gonna hit. Like, even when we were offering free lunch, I thought for sure our numbers would hit that 90% mark and everybody would be coming through the doors. We never really got above the 70s. So it is interesting. I thought for sure that would be breakfast, yes, but lunch, I think it's just a personal preference for people, and our cold lunch kids are just gonna be our cold lunch kids. I have to accept that. I'd like to, but I'm learning to adjust.
Do you ever, get told it's too expensive?
I do.
That the meals are too expensive, so they can't afford them and they send the cold lunch?
Yes. And we definitely are in a bubble, community where, you know, that 30%, when you hit that 40%, the 50%, you hit different funding levels, you know, it's a whole new other financial situation, and we're at that 30% where it's a hard, we don't qualify for additional funding, but we're not affluent enough to be able to not have to worry about that.
Right, and you have the kids that don't really qualify for the free or reduced, but the family really struggles financially.
Yes.
So.
Yes. And that is a percentage of it as well. That's the big argument for school meals for all, but that's a whole nother meeting. So things I'm currently working on. Right now, our food service purveyor, our prime vendor contract is up for bid. We have, for sure, do it every 5 years. Once we go to bid, we have a renewal option every year, but the max you can renew is 5 years, so we're up for bid.
and for our manufacturers or food processors. So that process will kind of be ongoing right now, but then we'll know by early February who our new prime vendor is going to be. It's a lot of work if we have to switch vendors, all of our item numbers, all of our food products, all of our, everything. So, the other piece of that is, in kind of going on the food supply challenges, is there's not a huge profit margin in school food service. And with COVID, we saw a lot of companies and manufacturers just get out of business. It wasn't worth it, the effort. As continuing regulations come for sodium and sugar and all these things that make food really tasty, some food companies just can't make the food that we're required to serve when they get out. So the number of food manufacturers that are able to supply us and that are willing to, and prime vendors and distributors that are willing to work with us dwindles and dwindles and dwindles. So it's definitely a challenge. But like I said, I'll be working on that now through February. And then come February, we'll be ordering food for next school year with whoever's gonna win those bids and get there. I do partner with CC11 to hopefully try and bargain purchase and quantity to get our pricing lower. So I think there's 39 districts that are participating in that.
I raised my eyebrows because like as a parent, I'm thinking next week's dinners and you're looking at the next year. So I was like, ooh.
I think
right?
tomorrow.
Or tomorrow, right, and you're already a whole year in advance.
How long are we gonna be
And my cooler freezer project is still ongoing. Andrew is helping me with that. We had some bids out there trying to decide. We're still getting pricing for outside and inside. And what that looks like as far as total encompassing project of demolition, potential cement.
I'll be so glad when that's done. I can't imagine how glad you'll be done.
Very much so. Ongoing with that is also my negative lunch account balance. As inflation happens, and we talked about that bubble group that just doesn't qualify for free reduced pricing, but still struggle, and the actual physicality in trying to manage lunch accounts, as that starts to creep up again with people coming back from free lunch to paid lunch, is kind of an ongoing process that is starting to consume my time a little bit more than it used to.
Like even compared to last year and the year before, like bigger numbers, or are we not there yet?
We're getting there.
Okay.
Yep.
I just wanna say though, that this is an ongoing, again, issue with every school district.
Absolutely.
It's
It
a
is.
conversation that we have at our quarterly meetings on what can we do, and there's no perfect answer, and so we just try to work through it, but again, it's not unique to us, it's something that's been, after, the free lunches went away, those numbers started creeping up again, so.
Can I ask what happens when a kid gets so far negative behind?
We feed the kids.
Okay.
We feed them here, we feed them there, we feed them everywhere.
Okay.
So.
You are that.
Dr. Seuss.
And my year-end report, I'll delve into that, numbers and all that kind of thing, but just kind of snapshot for tonight. So things we've succeeded with, and my goals are that average daily participation, throughout all increased pricing, free meals gone away, all those things, we've been able to maintain that 70% mark, so I consider that a success for us. We talked about the breakfast under the bell at the high school, lots of success there. Knock on something, I have positions filled, so yay, always looking for substitutes, but our positions are filled. That has not happened in the 10 years that I've been here. Yay! So, it's yay! Don't say out loud. And then based on what happens tonight and in April, my goal will be to stay on top of that and go and look to see what other buildings have looked like, what their models of food service are, you know. Even just a change of having 5th grade move to a different building, there's a different menu plan based on national regulations. So what does that look like for schools that are doing that? So I wanna try and get ahead of that, so it's not a knee-jerk reaction when we get there, whatever direction that ends up being. And then just to keep on keeping on. So thank you.
Thank you. And the team too.
Yes, for sure. All right. Hey, Leslie, you are up.
All right, thank you. Last year, I kind of started my talk with how I measure how successful the start of school went. Last year, I think we were down to 20 minutes or 10 minutes at the buildings to get out, when we leave. Normally, we leave the high school at 2:20 during the normal school day. I measure how quickly we get on the first days of school and how successful our start was. Last year it was 10 minutes the first day, and I believe it was 4 minutes the second day. This year we left 4 minutes late on the first day and on time the second day. What does that mean? That means our building staff is doing an awesome job about communicating with parents on where their child is going and communicating with us. Parents are doing a great job of getting a hold of us and letting us know any changes before the start of school. And it means that the staff is getting kids in the right lines, in the right place to get out to the buses and get them loaded quickly. Thank you. There's nothing worse on our end in the office, taking a phone call from the parents. Why is the bus a half hour late? Well, we don't leave until we get every kid in the bus. So that's a huge start for us, is to take a headache off of our head. Staffing, we were short a driver right up until about 2 days before school started, and we were able to have a driver that left us last year that came back in the nick of time, and I was able to get him all situated to start back. Helped us out greatly. We were fully staffed for the start of school. We had one substitute in training. That substitute is now licensed and working. We also added a transportation assistant. Thank you for doing that. Can't tell you how big of a help it is. With me still being kind of one of the primary subs, to have somebody there to answer phones and parents' concerns. Also to have somebody that can communicate out with parents when a bus is running late, which we've had happen a couple of times this year, due to road closures or things like that. She was able to use our parent app and communicate out with the kids specifically for that route, let them know approximately how late we were running and why. In one of the instances, we had one phone call, which tells me it's getting out there, tells me people are starting to use the app. Thank you, parents, for using the app. Talk a little bit about, we also hired a mechanic. We've had a mechanic position open since July. Dave Dudash, who was with us, is a very awesome mechanic, and he was great with our staff. Unfortunately, he just can't physically do the job anymore. Had it open, Matt did a wonderful job of keeping up as best he could. It's gone well. We've now hired a mechanic. He's a mechanic assistant. He's somebody that is not a mechanic. He is somebody that we are teaching to be a mechanic. He's the only application I had, so that was difficult. And so we brought him on. His name is Atas Muhammad. Very eager, wanting to learn, wanting to become a mechanic. He has a background of being a over-the-road truck driver for FedEx, wanted to start getting home. So really eager to learn, and seems to be fitting in well with our staff. Moving on to ridership, our average ridership in the mornings is about 908 students in our whole system, and our afternoon average is about 942. That equates to 57.68 students per bus in the morning, and 59.81 students per bus in the afternoon. We do this with 15 71 to 77 passenger buses and one 13 passenger special ed bus.
See, are those numbers significantly higher or lower than previous years, or pretty?
Well, actually, they're higher per bus because we're doing it with less buses now. Further on, I was gonna talk about kind of the efficiency of the department. When I started here, we were 20 large school buses and one special ed route. I was able to remove one early on. Just after the pandemic, we were horribly short drivers and forced to condense routes down. So when I started here, we were roughly 40 to 45 kids per bus. So now we're in that 60 kids per bus range, which is about as full as we can be. So we really can't stomach any further growth, which it's obvious we're not having that, without adding a route. The other key to that is I've been condensing and moving routes and stops and trying to balance route times with mileage, because those are the big time concerns. Right now we're averaging 62.8 miles per bus per day, which is basically an average of 31 miles morning and 31 miles in the afternoon. That's pretty good timing with this route. When it was here, we were a lot more routes, so it's saving us a lot of time and money. The next thing we're looking at is training and engaging staff in student safe state ridership. The drivers underwent a great deal of training this fall. We brought in a specialist to help us in behaviors called restorative practices. Gives them skills on minimizing the behaviors of students and resolving conflicts before it goes to the office deferral system, where the rest of us step in. To give you some solid numbers, just from the start of the school year to October last year, we had 50 office deferrals written. This year we had 27. So the drivers had bought into it. That was one of the questions that I asked in one of the meetings that we got towards the end. Are you using it? You know, because I wasn't getting paperwork in. And so, are you using it? Is it working? And the overall response from the drivers was, yes, it's very helpful. Many of them, bought into it, or even doing things with their own kids at home with it. So it was a big success on that point. What I also did with it was, and it was a help to have an administrative assistant to do this, we created a form of our own office deferrals that the drivers can actually use can download the form on their phone and fill it out directly on their phone, and it automatically populates in the Route Finder program that we have for the routing, and I have all of the results that come up right in the student's record. So now the problem I had when I was using Agile Climber was I didn't know how many write-ups each student had all the time. There wasn't a button that clicked or I couldn't see it right away. Now it's right on the form. It tells me exactly how many they have, and it gives me a listing of all of them. So it's made that easier to keep track of, and it gives me the opportunity to get out sooner to talk to the kids that need a little bit extra. And then the other thing is a safe and efficient fleet. After going through what I considered the worst bus inspection with the state patrol that I've ever had here, it was somewhat embarrassing to me. I took it kind of hard because we're better than that. However, understanding that the age of our fleet was the majority of the problem. So it's kind of hard for me to part of my goal is work to ensure a safe and efficient fleet. The word efficient is kind of a hard word to use because our budget has gone up for repairs so large over the years because of the age, okay? That being said, the board acting on buying 3 buses last year has helped move that needle a great deal, and I appreciate that. It is going to help. It took us from a fleet average of 16 to 17 years to a fleet average of 13 to 14 years. That's a great number, but national average on bus turnover is 10 years. Okay, so we're extremely behind as far as that goes. What does having newer buses do? It reduces that repair fleet. And I'm gonna guess that just by the time we implement all the buses that we have purchased in the last year, once the new ones get here, I have a pretty strong feeling that we're gonna reduce that budget from $130,000 to the $70,000 to $80,000 range. those are real dollars. And those are real dollars that I would much rather use to make us better in other areas, okay? Areas that we can make student experience better, parents experience better. One of the great things is future technology that's coming out. I've talked in the past about putting GPSs on the buses. Putting those GPSs on, make the Stop Finder program even more efficient, because it's come out now, they actually have expanded. It used to be it would give the parents the bus is so many feet away. Now the option is it will tell parents the bus is 5 minutes away, or if they wanna know when it's 20 minutes away. So it's a great tool, but there's a lot of components that cost money to do it. I don't like to do anything financially that does not make us better. Okay, there isn't anything that I would propose to anybody that does not make it better for our parents or for the district cost-wise. And so that's why it's one of the things that if I can save money on repairs, I can utilize that money somewhere else to make our department better. Buying new tools, buying additional lifts for the garage so that I can keep both mechanics working and make that part of it more efficient. So those are some of the parts of the goals that I'd like to see going forward. Can't say enough, again, thank you for getting the 3 buses. I know I've said it for years. Many of you have heard me say that. It was getting cumbersome to come in with my hat in my hand all the time, but I know the realistic outcome with how it saves the district money by doing things. You may spend it up front, but it, in the long run, saves us money. I'd really like to go back to at least 2 buses a year. I mean, I think it's reasonable. If we do that, we can maintain that 10 to 12 year range. And by the time you're putting 10 years on a bus, you're hardly putting parts into it, okay? And we get more money on their trade-ins on them. So they can do more with it once we're done with it. Thank you.
Thank you, and
The next committee meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024 at 5 p.m. in the district office conference room. The next regular board meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. in the district office conference room. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 1985-1A, deliberating concerning a case which is the subject of any judicial or quasi-judicial trial or hearing before that governmental body. C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, individual contracts. And D, considering strategy for crime detection or prevention. Motion by Kaisa. Second by Jan. Roll call, Craig?
Yes.
Jan? Kaisa?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
And myself will take 5. Thank you, everybody.